Oh, 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 oh. Good to see you, everyone. I'm in a fantastic mood.
And that's because we're going to talk about the vitality stat. Good to see you, everyone. Let's talk Enclave, specifically the vitality stat. So what exactly is the vitality stat? Well, if you managed to catch my video where I outlined the 12 Enclave stats, what they are, how they're applied, and how they work, you may remember that vitality is the stat of health and well-being. A character with high vitality will be less debilitated by injuries they suffer and better able to repair those injuries over time, especially once the mission ends. Vitality is a fun-loving but pragmatic stat, improving survivability but also readily applicable in social situations where your character is directly interacting one-on-one with other beings. So let's go over vitality's three major stat factors. The first of which I've already summed up to a certain degree as health and well-being. The second of vitality's stat factors is, of course, morale, as I mentioned in my lead-in video. You'll start to see this stat factor kick in when you have 20 or better vitality. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, it means that a character with 20 or more vitality will be less impacted by events or experiences that would normally reduce their mood, make them hopeless and miserable, as well as making this upbeat nature more charismatic and infectious to other people that they encounter and work with. This means that a character with relatively high vitality can serve as a wonderful rallying point to keep up spirits, keep people striving towards their goal, and stave off the blues. Now, vitality's third stat factor, which you should see start to kick in when you have about 30 vitality or better, is life force. This is a lot more complicated than the first two, so I'll just try to sum up. Life force is one of the three major forms of energy working in Enclave. Energy working is a pretty tricky mechanic, and I definitely intend on devoting a full video to it later down the line, but suffice to say that energy working is a method by which you can make one of your character's abilities or similar capacities do something totally different by coming up with an ingenuitive way of summoning up its power within you. Now, life force in particular is a very visceral form of energy work, in which you are kind of not quite substituting, but altering your ability by tapping into the kinesthetics and the viscerality of your character's body rather than drawing from spiritual or mystical power from which magic often sources. And vitality is the perfect stat to facilitate this process. So now that we know what vitality does, let's talk about how it relates to personality. What does a vitality personality look like? As mentioned in my initial video on personality, all given traits have a plus and a minus component. So what does a plus vitality trait look like? Well, as a general rule, plus vitality traits live large. They tend to be big and out there and happy, and they have a real joy in being alive. But they can also be very materialistic and sometimes quite covetous or self-interested, and often can be a bit of a blowhard, you know, that they're very talkative and garrulous, but at the same time, they have trouble shutting up. So for example, let's look at the vitality trait lazy. That's plus vitality minus vigor. Let your mind kind of free associate what laziness means. It's about kind of like taking it easy and not really having a lot of concerns, and in many ways just kind of enjoying what you're doing, enjoying where you are, or in many ways just wanting to do what you want to do rather than maybe doing what you have to do or feeling compelled to do. So in that respect, it takes kind of the loving life and the self-indulgent side of vitality, as well as like the slow-moving and I'm not really interested in what's going on nature of minus vigor. So now that we know a little bit about a plus vitality trait, what does it mean to have a minus vitality trait? Well, simply put, a minus vitality trait is meant to contrast plus vitality in every regard, and to that end, minus vitality traits tend to be about hating or resenting life, being embittered every step of the way as weariness. But at the same time, minus vitality is also about not self-indulging, about self-sacrifice and shunning the material world and maybe even pursuing a higher cause or a greater goal. In this regard, while it definitely has its negative sides, minus vitality traits also have their very positive and noble facets, which is pretty much what every combination of traits is meant to be, to have pros and cons innately associated with it. Let's take a glance at a minus vitality trait, like ambitious, which is plus arcane minus vitality. Now, of course, this has the plus arcane characteristics of being power-hungry and motivated and driven and maybe even a little obsessive. But it also has the minus vitality characteristics of rejecting luxury or sacrificing everything to achieve a greater goal, while also being in many ways embittered and haggard and kind of having a tough time of things overall. In this way, the ambitious trait, both sides of it, have positive and negative attributes, allowing for the trait to be very nuanced in every facet of its creation, which is, of course, the goal with Enclave personality. And that's the vitality stat, a matter of living large, loving life, and being healthy, happy, and ready to take on the world. I hope you enjoyed learning about this part of Enclave, and if you'd like to hear more about the game and join me along the journey, please subscribe to the channel. If you have any thoughts on this particular video, or any suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, and drop me a like if you enjoyed watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this component of Enclave with me. But until we meet again, my name is Robbie Howell. This is Enclave. Ciao for now.